Hey guys, welcome back to the program. Thanks for coming back and joining us here. In my last video, I was doing that interior work. Showed you guys the back end real quick. Asked you if you'd be interested in a video on a mini tub, spring relocation, and a Cal Trac video, just showing you guys what my current setup is and how I got there and how you might want to tackle such a project yourself. So that's basically what this video is going to be about. I'll give you guys as much information as I can, but as always, if I forget anything or I don't go over something and you're wondering about, do hit me up in the comments. Ask for questions. I do try to respond to everybody. And if you're new to the channel, subscribe. Go back, take a look at some of the old footage. We got drag race stuff, build stuff, dyno stuff, everything you want to see. If you like this video, you'll like that stuff too. So basically, we'll get started. First thing I'm going to go through is kind of my current setup, and then explore kind of some options and some ways that I got there. End up with, I'll get a tape measure on this thing. I'll pull a tire off, talk about wheel size, offsets, differential stuff. There's all kinds of information that it's good to get a handle on before you start tackling this project or sending it off to a shop for someone to do, because you do really want to be precise with where you want the car to end up. That way you can fit the maximum size tire that you can get in the back end of this thing. That's like the number one thing people always ask me is what wheel tire combo I'm running, about the differential, shortening it, all that kind of stuff. So we'll cover as much of that as we can. Okay, so let's get into the current setup. This is currently what I'm driving it as on the street. That is a Coker N50 tire on a 15 by 10 Cragar rim. That's an 8 3/4 Mopar differential. It has a 410 gear ratio, and it was shortened to accommodate the wheel offset. I'll get into wheel offset a little bit later. Springs are relocated, and I used the Mopar Performance kit for spring relocation. And then that is a full Caltrak system, split mono leafs, use their 9-way adjustable shocks as well. The only thing I never did, I didn't do the sliders in the back, and that's something I might upgrade still to later on. That is the current street setup, and then for race day tires, we go to the Mickey Thompson 28-11-5 on a weld 15 by 10. Okay, so now that you guys kind of know my street setup and you kind of know my race setup, I'm gonna go ahead and pull a tire off and show you guys inside a mini tub and spring relocation. I'll show you guys up in the trunk as well and talk about what we did there. Okay, tires removed now. We can take a look at those wheel tubs, and that there is exactly what we're talking about. On a stock Dart, that wheel tub, this guy here, the inner section of the wheel well, would come forward off of this frame about 3 inches. So what the shop had done has cut out that original one, installed a new piece, and made it flush with the frame, giving us much more clearance for bigger tires. Okay, here is the other side of that wheel tub. This is up inside the trunk, and there you can see it there. So this was a completely fabricated wheel tub. A lot of guys will just take a stock one and they'll just cut it down the center and install a strip to widen it and then get it to come up with that frame. Here you can see the spot welds for the frame running up to meet flat, like I showed you on the bottom side of that new wheel tub. So this whole section was cut out and then welded in a new tub. And then here you can see the original spring hanger location where all those bolt holes are. That's the front one there, and then when you go to the back one, it's right here, but it's buried under rubber. So that spring now, instead of hanging there, has also been moved in about 3 inches. Okay, and this is part of that Mopar Performance kit to relocate your spring. So stock car, the frame rail would run down and forward here, and this kit gives you this open channel to weld fully in, and then your spring will situate inside of it, moving it away from that stock location in 3 inches. Inside, in line with the frame, and at the back you just simply install a sleeve in the back section, weld it, and then you can run your shackle back there, eliminating that back hanger, and then spring is nice and in line with the frame. Now this is where things get really interesting, because when you move it inboard, you can also choose to move it back. Why would you want to move this location back? Because that'll actually move your differential back. And in doing so, it'll give you tire clearance at the front of your fender. So if you want to run any tire bigger than a 28 tall, this is how you do it. I moved my diff back 3/4 of an inch, giving me an extra 3/4 of an inch here, so I can actually run a 29 tall tire if I want. but it's important not to go crazy with it because your differential moves back closer to your gas tank, which can cause problems. But at a 3/4 inch move back worked out really well for me, and I can get a 29 tall tire in there. Just show you guys that tire on the other side here. Put tape on there. So I got 1.5 inches to the wheel well on a 28 tall tire. So if this thing was 29, push it 1/2 inch forward because it's 1 inch bigger. So I'd end up about 1 inch in there, which I'd be pretty happy with. But 28 tall with that 1.5 inch looks really centered in there. It looks good. Okay, so I got a tape measure here, and I'll show you guys exactly how much wheel well you gain. So there you go. I got 14 and just about 3/4 inches inside my wheel well. The leaf does stick out past the frame a little, like as you can see that it's a little bit wider, but you got about 14 inches after doing the mini tub. Okay, so now that you know kind of the wheel well opening you'll have after you complete the mini tub, you can look at a tire selection. It's important to get your tires bought beforehand and your rims, and that's gonna come into play with our back spacing. I'll talk about that in a second. But when you select the tire, remember to look at the actual tire specs, not just what the manufacturer puts on the side of them. So your total diameter is your actual true height, and then your section width is your true width. So 28 tall will fit if you don't move that diff back, 29 if you do relocate the diff, and then our section width is the true width of the tire, not the tread width, but the section width. And we know we got 14 inches in the wheel well, so anything around 13 inches will fit if you nail that rim back spacing. And what we're talking about there is the distance to the mounting surface on the wheel. That's how you're gonna center this, and then you can look at getting your rear end shortened to accommodate what wheel you want in order to perfectly center it and use up as much of that wheel well as you can. So I did have the rear end shortened when I had all of this done, and I did it to accommodate the weld wheels, which had a 4.5 inch back spacing. So I believe we shortened each side about 3 inches and then used custom axles. You're gonna wanna get that done at a shop because they'll weld a new flange onto the housing after they cut the old flange off, and they use a jig to keep it perfectly straight, because if it's not, things will wear against each other and you'll have issues down the road. So I believe we took 3 inches off. Don't quote me on that. And certainly this is something you want to get your wheel and tire size and figure out exactly where you want to be. But it's a cut and weld job done at a shop, and then a custom axle inside. So something to keep in mind too with shortening a diff, I do recommend you go shorter if you want to get the car really low or put the biggest tire you can in. Suspension fully hanging down. My brakes right there. It's about 12.5. So I can only fit a 12.5 tire and get it through this area. There are ways around it. You can deflate a tire, put it on there, and then inflate it on the car. But I change tires at the track, so that doesn't work for me. And a couple guys have hit me up and be like, oh, you gotta lower the back end of that car. Well, if I lower it, that'll pull the diff up higher, and I'll actually lose space in here, so I can't put a bigger tire. I have a second set of springs to drop the whole car 1.5 inches, but once I do that, I can't get my tires on and off. So that is something to consider. So moving it in more would be beneficial for clearance, pulling tires on and off. Okay, and the last thing to know about doing that mini tub job is you will not be able to run your stock exhaust. Stock exhaust hanger would go right underneath the frame and it would come out here. Your leaf is there now, so it does not fit. A lot of guys will dump it out behind the tire. That's kind of Chevy style. If you just cut it off at the back end, it'll kind of fog out your stuff. If you don't care about that, hey, it's what you can do. If you're going high end, guys will cut the gas tank here and then run it down this way. This side here has clearance on the gas tank frame rail. This side doesn't, so you can mod your gas tank, but exhaust is something you got to figure out with. I'll show you guys what I did on my car here. So this was my solution here. Ran 2.5 inch into 40 series in and out on the front, and then dumped it out in front of the tire. Kind of modeled it after the TA and AAR cars from back in the day. And it's pretty trick, I like it. Super loud, aggressive, good looking exhaust system. Okay, so I hope that answered any mini tub spring relocation questions you had. I'm sure I probably forgot something. There's quite a bit of information there, I know. If you got any questions, hit me up. I'll try to answer them as best I can. Again, not a professional, but I'll tell you what worked for me and where I ended up. With all that said now, we can start looking at that Cal Trac setup. Okay, so here is that Cal Trac setup. Now this is the best traction device for a leaf spring car. In fact, the fastest leaf spring car, I'm not sure if he still has the record, but he did there for a while, was actually a 69 Dart. It's called Tooth Jerker. Check it out. It's absolutely awesome. But it runs Cal Tracs on a leaf spring. It's just like this setup. So this is their A-body kit, inboard spring. That is important. And you can see here I do have this split mono leaves as well. And I got their 9-way adjustable shocks. I got their shocks up front too, but what this does is you get this forward hanger that has a pivot in it and then another bar back here. So as the differential starts to spin and create upward movement, normally like a pinion snubber would go in here, it pushes this bar forward, actions the lever, and then puts positive pressure down on your leaf spring, not allowing it to bind. So this is how those cars hook up so hard, and this system worked really good for me. One thing I really like about this forward hanger too, it eliminates all rubber. There is no rubber in there, so it's an aluminum bushing. It's a super snug fit, and this thing just works absolutely excellent. Free moving, but rock solid. So adjustments are super simple as well. They give you a couple locations to try different lengths of this bar out. They say you want to have it as parallel to the car as you can. And then adjustments are made here on the threaded rod ends at both sides. Super simple, but really the setup, I set it up as they recommended, and I haven't touched it since. It's been really great. The one thing that I noticed right away is my car became incredibly consistent in the 60 foot. That used to be all over the board when I just ran a pinion snubber and an SF spring. It was crazy. Sometimes it would hook up, sometimes it wouldn't. With this setup, my 60 foots are dead on. It made the car consistent, which in bracket racing is super important. And you still have some more adjustment back here if you go to their 9-way shocks. Just try to get under the car here, and dialing those in is super easy as well. Simple little twist down there. You can crawl under the car and make an adjustment in between rounds, no problem. Absolutely love this setup. Good shot of it there. Back up here. The only thing I didn't do is those sliders, and that's something I might do later, but that'll lower the car a little bit too. But just so happy with this. I recommend it to everybody. Okay, so I hope that answered any questions you had about the mini tub or Caltrak setup. If I missed anything, just hit me up in those comments. I'll try to answer everybody, of course. And if you're new to the channel, subscribe, check out some old stuff. You subs, stay tuned, because I'm going to show you guys a little something I've been working on too this past week. But thanks for watching. We'll see you soon. So just a little bit of a build update for my subs here. Check it out. Got a little hidden switch there underneath the dash. That's for that electric fan. So now I have full control over it. I've eliminated the mechanical fan. Pick up about 10 to 15 horsepower there. And we're ready for cruising and race season, boys. Can't wait.